That's working. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Either way, if the camera dies, we can continue with the audio.
Okay.
So, hey everybody, Be Still VoiceWorks here. I am on the phone with my grandfather. Just happens to be the greatest grandfather ever, even though he's not a great grandfather to me. He is a great grandfather. How do you like that?
That's cool.
I was hoping that he could tell one of his stories that I heard 1,000 times when I was a kid called Pinocchio Key. You think you could do that for me?
Sure.
Go ahead, whenever you're
This
ready.
Pinocchio Key is a story that I wrote for myself on my way to Florida. And I saw the moss hanging in the tree, and I tried to figure out where that moss come from. And then I remembered, what somebody told me it was. And I said, okay, so the story just blew into my head out of nowhere. The whole thing from start to finish. And it was once upon a time, way back in a long time ago, there was a bunch of people started a little village on the Atlantic Ocean over there in the northern part of Florida, and it was Jackson's Village. And the people around Jackson's Village, it kept getting bigger and bigger, and they'd go out and hunt. And finally they had to start going around the great swamp that was there and hunting on the sides and the north side of it. And so many people got to having to go that they just decided to put another village on the other side of the great swamp, and they called it Waycross because it was way across the swamp. And the people over there in Waycross got to noticing that once a month the river smelled really bad, and sometimes the trees would die and the birds would get sick and the fish would die, and they wondered what it was. Well, they talked to this one old man that'd been living there for 150 years, and he if you can believe that one, and his beard come way down to his belt, and he said, there's an old witch that lives out there, and she has to wash her hair with a special solution to keep it nice and healthy, and she rinses it off in the river, because if she don't have her hair touching the ground when the full moon rises, she turns into smoke and will be gone forever, until somebody says her, she finds her rocks, or she gets a special thing, she can come back. So, anyway, the people two guys went in there to find out, and when they found her, and they told her she had to stop doing that, she took out this big purple stone and she turned them into animals. And so, they lived out there in the swamp, and everybody wondered what happened to them. But they couldn't go back to the village because they was animals. And somehow the story got out of what happened, and they said, wow, what are we going to do? I don't know, but she's killing the fish, and she's killing the trees and everything else. We got to do something. Well, there was this little boy and girl, probably about 12, 13 years old, brothers and sister, and they decided they was going to do something about it. And so they went out there, and they saw the old witch, and they said, we can do something about this. We got to think about it. So the next night was full moon, so they got everything ready. The sister says, I am the fastest of the two of us. I can run faster than anybody. I'll run in there and grab that bag of rocks that she's got while she's washing her hair off in the river, and you go climb that big cypress tree, and I'll bring them to you, and you tie them off in the top where she can't get them. And he said, okay. So he took off looking for the big cypress tree, biggest one in the swamp. And when the old witch got that stuff together, she was singing this song, I'm Pinocchio Key, I'm bad I am. I can do anything I want to. Nobody can bother me, 'cause my hair be on the ground. Yeah, hey, hey. And she's washing her hair off in the river. And it stink. And she was making this poo lotion, man, it smelled bad. And that's what she washed her hair with. And she had it all in the river, and it's starting to go downstream. And she had her bag of rocks sitting up on a stump. And the little girl, the sister, went sailing through the clearing. And as she went by, she just casually grabbed that bag of rocks at a dead run. And as she piled through that little clearing, the old lady's witch's favorite bird, the blue jay, was sitting up in the tree, and he started hollering, thief, thief, thief. And, oh, my God, she come up out of the river, and she saw the little girl, and she hollered, stop, you thief. And she went off after her, because she could run pretty good, too. And she was chasing that little girl through the swamp, and the little old girl was ahead of her pretty good, but she kept getting closer and closer, and she had them long, big old fingernails starting to reach out. And just before she could reach out and grab hold of the girl, they come underneath that big old cypress tree. Now, there weren't a limb on it for a while as you climbed up it. So it took the boy a while to get up there, and he was just still huffing and puffing, and she come sailing underneath that tree and throwed the rocks up there, and he caught it one-handed. And the old lady come to a screeching halt. And she said, "Give me my rocks! Give me my rocks!" And he said, "Nope, can't do it, witch." And he started climbing the tree. And as he went up the tree, she put them big old long fingernails and them toenails in that bark, and she started clawing her way up the tree just like a mountain lion. Oh my God, he thought, this ain't going to work. So he kept climbing higher and higher into the tree. And as he got up into the top of the tree woke up and told him, "Son, tie that off up there on that top limb, and then you grab hold. Because that old witch has killed a lot of my friends with that stuff she puts in the river." And he says, "I'm going to call my friend the wind, and we're going to get rid of her." So the old boy tied that up there in the top of the tree, and he said, "What do I do?" He said, "Just grab hold and hang on." So he grabbed hold to the tree and was hanging on, and the tree called his friend the wind. And the wind started blowing and shaking the tree, and the mean old witch couldn't hang on, and she fell. And as she was falling toward the ground, the tree reached out with one of his limbs and grabbed her by the hair.
Mm-hmm.
And he hung on. And this was some long, pretty hair. And she said, "Turn me loose, tree, turn me loose." He said, "I can't do it, witch. You done killed too many of my friends. Turn me loose, or I'll call termites to just have you eat all the pieces." He said, "I can't do it, witch. You ain't doing nothing without your bag of rocks." And she said, she started hollering and cussing and calling them all kind of names. And she looked, and the sun was going down, and she started getting scared.
Uh-oh.
And when she looked the other way, there come the moon up, and her hair wasn't touching the ground. And she turned into smoke just as easy as anything, just puff, and floated away down the river. And so the hair was hanging in the tree, and the next morning the tree told the birds, "Take the rocks out of the bag and go hide them everywhere, in every little creek you can find. Hide them all over the place so she can't find her rocks. Then she won't have enough magic to come back. And take some of the hair and spread the hair around through the swamp so all the animals will know that the mean old witch is dead." And so they'd grab some of the hair and they'd take it and hang it in other trees. And if you go down to Florida now, you'll see that hair. It just kept growing and growing and growing, and it hangs from the trees. And it's in all the trees down in the Florida swamps, just hanging there in long, pretty strands. That big gray wads of hair. And the rocks, if you go into the creeks and look around, you just might find one of them real pretty rocks, and it might be one of her rocks.
We found one.
But they found out there was another thing, too. If you say her name backwards, she can't come back. So in order to make sure that everybody said her name backwards all the time and keep her from coming back, they named the swamp after her. Her name was Pinocchio. So they called the swamp the Okefenokee. And if you go down there late at night and watch, you'll see all of a sudden, you'll see the smoke come across the top of the water. Sometimes at Beaufort Dam up in Georgia, late in the afternoon in the summertime, just all of a sudden, poof, there'll be the smoke. And that might be that mean old witch looking for her rocks. And if you go down by the swamp and look, and you see that smoke going along the top of the water real soft and easy like, if you listen real close, you can hear her calling for them. "Rocks, rocks, where's it at? Where's it at? Need it, need it, rocks." So always say her name backwards and we got no problem. The end.
Okefenokee. Man, I have to tell you, that was one of your best tellings of that, and I'm honored to have it on the channel.
Well, thank you, sir.
So, how did that come to you again?
I was driving Ashley down to we was going down to Silver Springs, and that was hanging, all that stuff. She asked me, she said, "What's that stuff hanging in those trees?" I said, "That's witch's hair." And she said, "What witch?" I said, "Well, you know, the mean old witch that lived in the swamp." And all of a sudden, that story just exploded in my head, just like I'd read the book. And I said, "Okay, I'll tell you the story." So I made the story up while we're driving down to Silver Springs.
That's amazing. You know,
And it was one of those kind of things that you just can't help it. It just comes out, and just you don't know what's coming next. You just say it, and it's like, you know, it's one of those inspirational things.
Before your next birthday, I'd love to get all these professionally done on my microphone, all your stories,
Yeah.
and then I'll add sound effects to the audio and get Tia to do some artwork for it. And
Okay.
I will make like a digital storybook.
All right.
Man, you know, a lot of the people watching my channel are young people who are getting into a spiritual awakening, which people are calling woke now.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of deception when you're trying to evolve spiritually, or when you think you've evolved spiritually and you're getting inside of you, you feel like you're higher than someone else. And I was wondering, from a person who went through spirituality in the time period that you did, through Vietnam and everything like that, what's some advice you might have for a young person who's trying to go through a spiritual awakening?
Whatever you believe, whatever it is, believe it with all your heart.
Mm-hmm.
And don't let anybody just change your mind just by saying so. I was brought up in a Christian church, and so I believe the Christian Bible. And it says, he shall walk among you under many names, and he shall try to deceive you with many ways. So, you know, you're going to have temptations put in front of you, and people's going to try to change your mind and tell you you're wrong and everything else. But whatever you believe it with all your heart. And when you say your prayers, say them with sincerity, not, well, you know, if you can, I'd like for you to try to do this. Don't say it like that. Ask for what you want, because in the Bible it says, ask and you shall receive.
Right.
Knock and the door shall be opened. And, you know, you just got to believe whatever you want to believe it with all your might. But if you read the Bible and read it close, you'll find out that there's, especially the New Testament. The New Testament's got a lot of good stuff in it. And whether you believe the Christian religion or not, there's an awful lot of things in there you can live by that'll make you a better person anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Just by living by the rules that are in there. Love one another, love your neighbor. And if somebody starts trying to get in a yelling match with you, don't lose it. Don't lose control. You know,
Never.
Keep your mind and your spirit at ease.
That's one thing I try to teach, is reaction.
Huh?
Don't react to environment. Instead, do what's appropriate, but don't just do what your body wants to react to at all times.
Right. Don't explode. Just, well, you may be right, but, I got to believe what I believe. That's the answer you get when they say, like the Moonies and, Muslims and everything try to get you to change your religion and everything. Say, well, you believe the way you were brought up, and I'll believe the way that I believe. And one day we'll both know the truth. 10 minutes after we're dead, we'll know the truth.
Yeah, that's something. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, that's something to think about.
It's something I've learned. If you believe something to your core, no matter how many years you try to believe something else, you're never going to actually believe anything except what you truly believe.
That's right.
It's important to figure out what that is.
And just because you think you're in love with somebody, don't mean you are.
True.
It means you're attracted to them for some reason, but it's not. You have to really be careful.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you fall in love with a person, you say, I would have never fell in love with this person when I was younger. And you don't know what it is, but then the more you hang around and talk to the person, and the more you're around the person and everything, you begin to understand that they're an awful lot like you inside. They believe like you, they act like you, they talk like you, they like the same things you do, and it's just a perfect harmony wherever you go.
Yeah.
And that's what makes everything so cool.
A lot of people nowadays, a lot more of the people that I work with or talk to, are into shamanism. And you and I, unfortunately, know the good and the bad side of that. Do you have any words of caution towards people who are seriously interested in diving into that area?
Shamanism is actually the Native American shamans were mostly herb healers, but they would do the dance, and they would say the words, and they would pour the things over the rocks and all that, and that was to make the person really believe that they were being healed, and their own body would heal itself.
Mm-hmm.
And the herbs were always good because they were medicinal herbs, and they actually helped heal. So that's what a shaman truly is an herbal healer. But people begin to think that it's more getting into the spirit world and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But you start trying to mess around with the spirits, you open that door And you got to accept whatever comes through it, because you're trying to call a certain person up in a seance or something like that. That might not be the one that walks through the door that you just opened. And you got to deal with whatever comes through, and sometimes it's not very pleasant.
No. What about people like us who were just sitting there and they choose to come to us instead?
Who, the good guys or the bad guys?
Any spirit, I feel like I've been reached out to more than I have tried to find one. Remember Candy and Clyde at the house?
Oh, yeah, yeah. I think one of them came with me.
Oh, to where you are?
sometimes I hear voices around here. It's really cool. And things, you can't find something, and you go looking for it, and you come back, and it's right where you thought it was in the first place.
Yeah.
They're playing that stupid game with me again. And I mean, when the table hadn't got anything on top but your keys, and you come to get them and they're not there, and you're the only one in the house,
Mm-hmm.
and you start looking for them, and you come in the bedroom and say, okay, put my keys back, and you go back in there on the table, it's like, okay. But if a spirit comes to you and tries to talk to you, listen to it.
Yeah.
Because it's trying to get a message out. And it might not be to you, it might be a message they're trying to get to somebody, and maybe you can take this message to somebody for them.
Mm-hmm. Just don't be
because
deceived.
You're the only one that's receptive.
Right.
And the person they're trying to get in touch with is not receptive. They've got a mind block up that this don't exist.
Yeah.
The only thing that exists is what I can put my hands on. There's no such thing as spirits and God and heaven and hell and all that. They don't believe that none of that truly exists. That when they die, that's it. They rot in the grave.
Mm-hmm.
So there are people like that, and sometimes some of their grandparents or brother or sister or something's trying to reach out to them.
Yeah.
And they will come to you, and they will give you hints as to who this person is, and all of a sudden one day you're going to realize this is the person that I got the message for.
Yeah.
So it's scary as hell, but if you've got the gift, use it.
Yeah.
Just remember that don't really try hard, because it's easier if you don't try.
Right.
Just
Absolutely.
accept it. It's like rain. You can't make it rain, but when it comes, you can go out there and sit in it and enjoy the heck out of it.
You have to be part of the experience, not trying to force it to do anything.
Yes, and once the message gets through the spirit world that you're receptive, more and more of them will come, and they can't all reach out. All of them haven't got that ability to reach out and touch you, or to communicate with you, but there are some that can. And I don't know how to explain the difference, because I'm not a spirit.
Right.
But I know that sometimes I have dreams about people that have long since been dead, and they're doing something that if I sit and think about the dream long enough, it was something they were trying to tell me.
Mm-hmm.
And they were telling me in a dream. And okay.
Now I get it.
I get it. So.
Well, you think oh, sorry, were you about to say something?
No, go ahead.
I was going to see if you could tell us a little bit about astral projection or dream walking from your side.
It's scary. I mean, it'll scare the bejesus out of you.
Yeah.
Whenever you are in another room doing something and you realize, I'm asleep. This is a dream. I'm not really here. Then all of a sudden you wake up in the bed, and it was so real, and so you can't force it. It's just you have to be not in a deep sleep, but in that REM. Just after you go to sleep, or just before you wake up when you start dreaming. If you really try sometimes and you think about the dream that you're in, you can force it certain ways. And like when I go to sleep, I always lay here with my eyes closed, and I think about where every tree and every bush is outside.
Yeah.
And what my yard looks like. And I can almost see it. And then as I go to sleep, I can actually almost walk out there. But I look out the windows at it, and I'm not really at the window. I'm asleep in the bed. And it's really a cool thing, but it takes a lot of years of practice.
It does. A lot of us feel that the world, everything is a vibration, technically. Even solid mass and matter is a vibration. And a lot of us feel that perhaps when you get in that zone between asleep and not asleep, that the vibration of your consciousness can go into a version of the world that's just the vibrational signature of that world. That's why everything kind of looks the same, because it's a vibrational version of the real world, and you can walk through it when you're astral projection or astral projecting.
Well, a lot of my dreams are in color, and I have the hardest time sometimes, whether it's a college parking lot or a building that I've been in before, some of the plants that I used to go in when I was working, or something like that. And I mean, I can see the people and I remember them and everything, but I can't find my truck. And no matter where I look, I can't find my car, I can't find my truck, I can't find my way out. There's something that I can't find. And it gets aggravating me, and that's when I wake up, when I get aggravated, because I can't find my car. And when I go fishing, I get in the boat and I go up to my favorite place, and I start fishing, and then as I start coming back, I'm looking for another place to fish, and the boat keeps getting smaller and smaller, and then it starts filling up with water, and I have to get out on the bank and walk back.
Jeez.
It's like a real place. I mean, it's just as real as it can be to me, because my dreams are that vibrant.
Yeah.
If you want to put it that way. Or there's another word they use, and I can't remember what it is. But
do you ever feel like you dreamed tomorrow, and then when you do tomorrow, it happens the way you dreamed it?
Well, that depends on choices other people make, because they influence what happens tomorrow.
Right.
Sometimes, yeah, because I got it on my mind a little bit, you know, that tomorrow I got to go to church, you know, get up early and don't mess around, get ready and go. And so I might have a dream about being up at Jed's church, or after church going to lunch with Jed or something like that.
Yeah. I have dreams sometimes that are, I mean, you know me from when I was a kid.
Lucid is the word. Lucid.
Well, not even that. It's dreams that perhaps it's events that are going to occur that were set in stone events. You know, maybe you have events that are probable, possible events, but some events are set in stone because they were laid out that way. And I feel like sometimes I come across those. And I'll just know in my heart, you know, tomorrow I can't go to this certain place because I know something's going to happen. And then if we go there, it does. And
well, I'll give you a clue. I'll give you a clue to that. You can look at a door, but you can still see what's on both sides of you without looking at it, right?
Right.
Peripheral vision.
Yes.
I mean, you can see your hand moving even though you're not looking at it out of the side of your eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, your brain records all this, even though you don't consciously think about it. You hear things that you don't consciously listen to, but your brain does. So your brain listens and records an awful lot of stuff and sees an awful lot of stuff that you don't pay any attention to. And then when you get in a situation, or a situation starts to develop, you get that little itch, or the little bell starts ringing.
Mm-hmm.
That's because your mind is playing back these things that were contrary to the way you wanted things to go, or they were contrary to life. You know, in other words, don't go there, you get hurt.
Yeah.
And they're trying to tell you that. And that's what people call hunches.
Yeah.
Or little bell kept ringing, so I didn't go, or I changed my mind for some reason, I don't know why. That's because your subconscious mind is a heck of a lot smarter than you think it is.
Absolutely. It's a collection of all the experiences you've ever had.
Yes. And the things that you take no notice of. That's the reason a lot of people go through life blind as a bat, even Christians, some of them, because they take too many blessings for granted, like clean air, you know, and breakfast in the morning, and a bed to sleep in. They take too many things for granted, and they don't understand the blessings that they've got.
Absolutely.
And when they start taking it for granted, and they start looking for other blessings, they're not going to be able to see them.
Yeah.
Because it's like trees, man. They make oxygen and shade and home for animals, you know, and nuts that you can eat if you like hickory nuts, stuff like that. So always be aware of everything as a blessing and not a gimme.
Yeah.
Because I deserve it.
I agree. You know.
And you live a lot smoother life if you do that.
Absolutely. That's good advice. You know, we're already coming up on 25 minutes. I was wondering, a lot of the viewers at home don't know any of your stories. Would you tell them about the store, the shop, if you remember which
the Indian store?
The one you dreamed about.
Yeah, the one I dreamed about. I dreamed I was walking in, all of a sudden I'm on this dirt road and there's this old shack-looking building in front of me, and I went inside and it was an old country store with rows and rows of shelves. And all these shelves had little boxes on them with things in them. Instead of cans sitting there, there were these boxes with stuff stuffed in the boxes.
Yeah.
And there was Aztecs, Cherokee, Creeks, Navajo, you name it. There was a Native American in there, and he's going along with his own pouch, and he's taking things out of these boxes. And as he walks along, sometimes he would ask the guy at the counter what this was, and he'd tell him, and he would take it and look at it and put it in his pouch. And what they were doing, they were shopping for medicines and stuff. And I'm sitting there, when I finally realized what's going on, I started looking in the boxes, and there was herbs and flowers and mushrooms, you name it, it was in there.
Incredible.
Bark from trees and all this stuff. And some of it I recognized and some of it I didn't. And so I just kept looking at, they didn't see me, but I could see them. And they were dressed in their native garb. And I could tell they were medicine men because of the way that they were dressed and the things that they carried with them. And I was wondering, I said, they always talked about how they went into the spirit world to learn about new medicines and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was given a look at possibly a place where they went.
Amazing. It reminds
and it
me.
was unreal.
It reminds me of the Akashic Record. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but it's a place where all the energy with all the knowledge of everything that ever happened or may happen is stored, and people of different faiths have reported going there in meditation and seeing things and having knowledge laid out before them that when they come back they can't even tell about the knowledge because it's not something that can be spoken.
Yeah.
And it seems like a similar place where maybe the way that you saw it when you went there was in the way that makes you most comfortable, which is with all the medicine men and shaman, and maybe you were tapping into some of that record.
Well, I'll tell you, I've noticed and I've talked to people, and everybody that, like yourself, that does a lot of meditation and just true meditation and reaching out to see what you can feel, has different experiences.
Yeah.
And they're not all the same. And so everybody that can do that, if they ever got together and started really talking about what they experienced and not poo-pooing the other guy because, I don't believe that,
Right.
But accepting what the other guy says as he truly experienced it. And then things might start to really, form a click. You could really get a click going where you could exchange information. But, if you get in there where some guy don't believe you, you're out of your mind, you didn't really, that's just nothing, I wouldn't believe that.
Yeah.
Then you can't have a group achieve anything.
Absolutely.
You all have to be of one mind and one agreement on a lot of things.
Yeah. I don't think that 30 minutes is enough for us to get everything we want to do in. Do you think you could do this again someday?
Sure.
Personally, I think that we have interesting conversations. I've always loved to speak with you, and I think that if we had some of the conversations maybe like we used to, I think people would really benefit from it.
Well, I'll tell you, grandson, you and I had some experiences that, I didn't have a father to go off with me, and my brothers and I did an awful lot of things when we were growing up, and whenever you got old enough to go, we had some things, and we done some things that were just truly amazing, and I won't ever forget them. We had a blast.
Me either. And once my book is finished, I plan to have it all in there.
Okay.
And I hope you'll...
Even getting lost in the briar patch out there.
I don't
First time we
smell
went
no
out,
gun.
Got lost in that one place in the briar patch. I didn't think we'd ever get out of that rascal.
No, that was crazy, but...
Ray Rabbit couldn't have got out of that briar patch.
Way back yonder when the moon was still young. Oh, my God.
Way back at the long time ago.
Yeah. What a... it's funny. I look back at my life. It's bittersweet. It sucked, but it was also amazing. Like... when I was hanging out with you, it was completely different.
Oh yeah.
So I'm glad you could give that to me.
You and I were of a like mind on an awful lot of things.
Yeah, I think I think we're a similar.
Even though the years were so far apart, but we were both of like mind when we started to do something.
Well, you're the reason I had a theory where I called it the Betsa Theory of constant incarnation instead of reincarnation, that we actually incarnate before we even die. We reincarnate again, possibly, in our own family.
Yeah.
And that's why whenever I get a chance to ask you questions, I feel like our paths are so similar that I need to know certain things, that what I might hit at certain events, and I think your advice is super appropriate for my life.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
I appreciate it, grandson.
Well, I'm going to have to let you go, but, everybody out there, if you're interested in that story at the beginning, we're obviously going to do it a little bit better in the future with graphics and things like that, but I also